and then get it started. All right. People should be shuffling in now.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Um, we were having quite a few technical difficulties, but I will go ahead and get started as we introduce our speaker, who is still trying to get his presentation switched over from a different computer due to our technical issues. But hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's presentation on the economics of recycling and Hefty ReNew. My name is Lauren Smith, and I'm an AmeriCorps member serving with Conservation Nebraska's Common Ground program. Conservation Nebraska's mission is to protect our state's natural legacy by educating the
Thank you,
public,
Michelle.
supporting communities, and increasing civic engagement, which we accomplish through locally led education efforts and community engagement projects to address local conservation concerns. Before I introduce tonight's speaker, there are a few rules to go over. For those joining online, your cameras will remain off and you will be muted throughout the presentation. Please type any questions you have in the chat or the Q&A section throughout the webinar. But if you want to save your questions until the end of the presentation, that works too. Following the presentation, we will have a very brief survey that should only take less than a minute to complete. This survey helps support programming like this one, so we very much greatly appreciate you taking the time to fill those out. Tonight, we welcome Dale Gubbels, who has stepped down as CEO of First Star Fiber, but remains one of its principal owners and serves as a board chair. Last summer, he partnered with a Canadian plastics company to form the Last Pound, which is devoted to creating circular economic opportunities for some of the most difficult and ubiquitous plastic consumer packaging, like grocery bags and snack bags. I will hand it over to Dale for his presentation. If are you ready?
I think I am, if you can still hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Are you
All
doing
right.
the presentation set and ready to share your screen?
Yes. All right. All right. There we go. I'm just trying to share my screen now, and it's not. There we go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I have it set, but yeah, okay. There you go.
Here we go.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I apologize for this. And thankfully, Michelle was here to help me go through this, but something's wrong with my computer. That's all I can say. So we'll try to make the best of it, though, with using her computer, which I really appreciate. Um, so this presentation, and I hope people will take the time to put questions into the chat. And Lauren, if you can kind of keep a track on that, I'd love to be able to answer questions as we go. But the primary thing that I want to talk about is what I believe after almost 40 years in this field of recycling, it's time we rethink recycling. And I say that from the viewpoint that so many people I've talked to over the past 40 some years have a very warped idea of what recycling is. One, they think we're going to save the environment. That's not true. We're not saving the environment. The environment, frankly, hopefully will save us, which is a better way to look at it. As we think of recycling, though, we do need to think of it as an investment, both in ourselves as well as our children's future. And one of the primary reasons why I say that, we've got a very warped idea of what waste is. If you stop and think about it, nothing in the natural world is actually waste. it's a human concept or misconception, if you will. Waste are in the natural world are just resources. It's resources for another species or entity that has somehow evolved to be able to utilize what another species no longer needs. Um, and that, is probably the underlying premise of everything that we should do in our country, including our economics, which is one of the biggest problems about recycling is just how little attention is paid to the costs of not recycling. Um, there's an economic principle or concept, if you will, that there are many, many costs. They're called external costs that take place in our everyday lives. By that I mean, and if you were to look it up on Wikipedia, you would find that it's these externalized costs are ones that the individuals who are making a product or a municipality that is working on solving a problem, they're, they we as a society reach conclusions that think, oh, we solved the problem or we've made a product and we've taken care of all the costs. But no, the externalized costs are those that society at large ends up dealing with. And when it comes to recycling, the common perception is it's an expensive thing to do, but I always say as compared to what, you know, and that's where the externalized costs are borne by people who often don't realize what is happening to them. Um, in fact, right now in our state, we've reached a point where our average cost to put a ton of garbage into a landfill is $55. And yet there's many places around the state where it first has to go to a transfer station because the distance to the landfill is quite a bit farther away. And when we look back at what the landfill charges were just for us here in the Omaha area, about 5 years ago, we were paying around $23 a ton because it is the largest landfill in the state. It's close to us. They're dealing in volumes that most people can hardly believe. It's about 400,000 tons a year of material going into the landfill from the Omaha area. And across the state is closer to the 2 million tons that we're burying every year. So my point also is if we look at what the costs are today, and for us here, just 5 years since the last time we saw an increase, we're now at about $35 a ton. So in other words, this is a growing problem for the state because the other thing to keep in mind, as landfills close, that means that there are fewer landfills and there's far greater distance when a community's landfill closes. But again, coming back to the externalized costs, think of the people who have to live near landfills. There's a cost there for them as well. There's traffic, garbage trucks heading down their streets and their roads. There's litter. There's often pests with gulls and other birds who feed on the landfill. All those costs are there. It's just that no one is paying or reimbursing those people for having to deal with those costs. Um, another common misperception that we see all the time is that there are no markets for the recyclables. Again, I've been involved in recycling for um, better than 40 years, and paper is a large part of what's in our waste stream even today. The state of Nebraska is doing a study. They're all this year, they will be going through the garbage in 7 of the state's landfills and estimating what are we burying. When it comes to paper, they said 40% or better is actually recyclable paper. The other thing that I think the studies will show, but the last time they did a study like this was 2008. At that time, they found that plastics was just slightly less than 20% of what we're burying. And then when you look at the figure of 2 million tons per year, that means we're also burying uh, close to 400,000 tons a year of just plastics alone. And that doesn't include the plastics that never make it to the landfill. We're talking about the plastics that are in trees, in our streams, and this is another externalized cost. Um, our wastewater treatment plants are often uh, being impacted and break down because of the plastics that their systems aren't really designed to deal with. So there's tremendous amount of plastics that are causing problems across our state. When you take these two materials together, though, and you consider what the potential is to that markets have developed for them, we're talking about potential for some huge landfill savings. Um, in fact, one of the things that I mean by that, we were the first recycling company in the country to adopt and um, offer all of our customers the potential to recycle what other people or what anyone actually would consider a non-recyclable plastic. By that, I mean everything from potato chip bags to fast food containers to even the plastic in your cereal boxes that are a type of plastic that could be recycled. So when we heard of this program and it was developed as a pilot program in California, we reached out to the sponsor of it to see if there would be any interest in making it available here in Nebraska. And they said they would work with us, which was good because the first idea that they had was to send it to a cement kiln down in the Kansas City area because all of this material does make a good fuel source and it replaces bunker fuel, which is um, really a low grade type of petroleum. And when these materials were being burned, they actually burned hotter than those materials. And it is actually burns cleaner then. However, we told the sponsor, which was Dow uh, Plastics, that we weren't happy with that alone. We needed to find other alternative uses for this. So for about a year and a half, we went around the country looking for technology that would be able to utilize these plastics and upgrade their use into products that could also then be recycled. And I'll talk about that in a little while later on. But one of the things to think about in talking about investing in recycling uh, is the need to get the community behind it. And it's commonly thought that people just won't do it. That's not necessarily true. Um, we have found here in the Omaha and Lincoln, and even very small rural communities across this state and across this region, because we do pull in material from surrounding states as well. But when a community raises the expectations of what they want their citizens to do, people generally participate and are happy to do it, especially when it's pointed out to them that, yeah, there may be a cost involved. But one of the primary reasons that there's usually a cost involved in recycling is because the system is designed for convenience. Um, if we could get people to separate all their material, keep it in different boxes and bins, and then set it out on a different day of the week so that one truck could pick up nothing but paper, and maybe the next week nothing but aluminum cans, and the following week nothing but plastics. Uh, that would be a very cost-effective approach, and these resources would be a lot easier than to market to mills and end markets that need them. The problem with that, though, is people want it to be convenient. And that's what led to the municipalities, Omaha being one of the first, to uh, have the single stream approach, where people are asked to put all of their recyclables into a separate bin that's collected every other week. Their trash is collected every week, which I'll talk a little bit about that in relationship to the Hefty program again in a little bit. But that convenience is costly, because for us then to separate it into the component materials that the end markets need, we've had to spend upwards of several $1,000,000 just in the equipment that is specialized to sort material out. And as you may uh, know, because Conservation Nebraska is touting the fact that we will do a tour of our MRF, which stands for Material Recovery Facility, I believe August 1st. And I hope many of you will be able to make it here, and you'll see that equipment in action. But we've also found that the communities that set goals, um, and it's nature, it's human nature as well, that if you think you're beating your neighbor as something, you'll actually do a little bit better. A lot of different ways to go about doing that. But we also think one of the primary needs to get a recycling community to be able to achieve some high diversion rates is to show them that what they do is actually um, a benefit to their community. By that, and I mentioned that we went around for about a year and a half looking for technologies. Well, we found what we think is a way to do that. We're converting the materials that I mentioned in the Hefty program into plastic lumber. That plastic lumber is being made into tile, it's being made into park benches and raised garden beds, a variety of things that are very useful and very um, uh, noticeable in a community. And we've got communities that have talked to us about building um, an outdoor stage with it. They're trying to raise some money to do that. Um, we have managed to get some contributions from some of the brands whose packaging is in the bags. And we use those donations to buy lumber for high school shop classes. And the students have made everything from park benches to uh, planters for their school. And one young man even made a hog trough for his family, which uh, his family's hogs, that is. So there's a lot of different ways to use this material or these items, which goes to my point that I often say, everything has value. It just has to be in the right place at the right time and used in the right way. And it takes a lot of ingenuity at times to do that. We can't make that claim that we were the ones who came up with this. This was the equipment that we found up in Canada, and they had been using it for a number of years up there. And we're very pleased to say that it's going over very well here in the States, in Nebraska. Um, One of the things that I keep harping on too is we have to invest in resources. And again, the underlying concept is that waste is a given, forget it. These common misperceptions, let's not uh, focus on those, but let's focus on what the solutions. Recycling, is expensive perhaps, but again, compared to what? If you design and put effort into a comprehensive program that can divert upwards of 40%, and in some cases higher if you can include going after the organics and compost those, you can get more than 60% out of the landfill. And I say this also out of your house. I have a backyard composting system. Between that and the Hefty ReNew bag program and the other materials that we recycle, I could go all month long without having to set out any trash or any garbage. In fact, I define garbage as wet material that goes into my compost. So I only have a little bit of trash that I've not figured out yet how to recycle here at First Star. But again, my recycling cart is pretty well full every um, other week. Although one of the other advantages of knowing that waste does not have to take place, we've also adopted practices that we've even reduced our recycling cart and our needs for things. And the Hefty ReNew bag has been a real boon in that regard, because once you start realizing, oh, did we really eat that many potato chips this past week? It makes me think about my eating pattern as well. So there's a lot of ways to overcome these so-called obstacles to recycling. And our aim in working with communities is to show how they can get a very comprehensive program such that they will find that recycling is a wise investment for them.
Hey Dale, we have one question. Someone's asking, is the plastic lumber recyclable later after it's been used?
That's a very good question, and I'm glad you asked, because yes, it is. In fact, the trimmings, when you cut the lumber, and there's always trimmings, we tell people bring it back, we grind it up, and goes right back into additional lumber. So yeah, it's completely recyclable, and it's 100% plastic. Um, and let me back up. Uh, there's no such thing as 100% recycling of anything, because there's always paper or other things that we'd rather not have in there. But the technology and the system is able to make lumber, and it just goes right into the lumber along with the plastics. So, are there any other questions, Lauren?
No, that was all we had right now.
Okay. So, my sense, if you're concerned about your town's future, and I don't care if it's uh, a large metropolitan area or a small village, uh, there's really a good reason to be investing in recycling. And the way to go about doing that is think about it as an investment plan, a community resource investment plan. There's a lot of things that go into the decision. It's not all that complicated, but it does, like anything else that requires or should have a positive effect. Some thought needs to go into it. I believe the best way to start is try to figure out what are your alternatives true costs. And as I've told town clerks across the state, you need to look at not only what is it costing your town now, but also what did it cost 5 years ago? And you'll be surprised how many of them are like, geez, we never really thought of it that way. We put it in the budget, but it's just based on what was it the past year, and we always add a little bit more. But if you add a little bit more every year and you just think it's natural to pay, it's no wonder that the average across the state has been increasing, and the distance to the landfill, the cost also has been increasing. So there's a lot of reasons to believe that if you start with examining what is costing you, you can convince your town officials to get more into this as well. The other thing that we hear a lot of is, well, yeah, we tried recycle and it failed, or when um, our champion left town or retired, no one wanted to do it anymore. Well, that often ends up blaming recycling. It doesn't necessarily mean that meant that recycling wasn't working. It just means that conditions changed. And the number one thing that we find as an excuse again is often that, well, the markets have have gone away. Well, in my 40 some years in this business, I can tell you markets are stronger now. There's more of them than there ever has been before. Now, I say that with a cautionary addition. There is no free lunch. And what we have found is that, yeah, that commodity markets go up and they go down based on a variety of things. And not to get into politics, but right now the tariffs are one of them. Uh, However, the need does not go away, and the service should not go away either, because again, the one certainty is that putting things into a landfill costs money as well.
Hey Dale,
And
we've got a question here. Sorry to cut you off.
no, please.
Someone is asking also about the lumber. They're asking to compare the plastic lumber to vinyl siding. I've heard that the vinyl can be harmful.
Well, vinyl siding is a type of plastic. It has chlorine in it, and we do not recycle the poly or uh, the vinyl polyvinyl siding because we're not equipped to handle it. Um, there are markets for it though, where they do deal with the off gas when the chlorine is melted. There is going to be gas that can be harmful. Um, Thankfully, there's less and less PVC, um, polyvinyl chloride packaging uh, in the marketplace anymore. In fact, when we last did an audit of the material, we could not find any PVC in the packaging. Um, so your question is right. But again, I go back to, if you look at what was the purpose of of the vinyl siding initially, it served a good purpose, but the externalized cost of what do you do with it afterwards needs to be addressed as well. Thankfully, there are some companies that in the past, when we have gotten some vinyl siding, we have sent it off to these other operations that uh, are set up with the technology and the system to protect their workers and how they go about recycling it. So, and that brings up a good point. There's a lot of resources available, as I say here in this list. The Nebraska Recycling Council, uh, which has been operating for a good number of years, um, has put together a very comprehensive booklet on how to set up a municipal waste reduction plan. And if any of you are residents of a town that doesn't have recycling, I strongly recommend that you look into that because the NRC also is very good about helping with finding grant money, such as the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy, or Department of Water, Environment and Energy now. Um, and then First Star, we have developed what we call the hub and spoke, and we got a grant from the Nebraska Environmental Trust Fund to help at least 5 communities per year. Although we set a higher target, we're looking to help 15 communities per year for the next 3 years to set up a more comprehensive recycling program. And be happy to direct to anyone who's got some interest in that to the right people here at the First Star Fiber to look into how to do that. Lastly, I'll say if we care for our state, we need to tell our state senators to pass model extended producer responsibility legislation. What this means, and I'll go back to my comment about externalized costs. As I mentioned, brands, as they design their packaging, are a huge reason why we have landfills in the first place. If it had been put on their shoulders years and years ago, as well as all manufacturers who are making and selling something, if they were to be just as cognizant of the need to find a way to use this material at the end of its first useful life, I'm not sure if we would even have the landfill problems that we have. Well, thankfully, this concept of putting the responsibility on the manufacturers and the packaging industry is taking hold, even in Nebraska. Nebraska's unicameral this past year took the step to pass an EPR bill that looks solely at batteries. And it was sold to the legislatures on the idea that batteries, if disposed of improperly, are a major safety issue. And of course, when we talk about batteries these days, we're talking about everything from the cell phones and this computer. Uh, my computer, I wouldn't mind recycling it right now, quite honestly, but I won't. But the battery industry will be coming up with a way, and the costs involved, to develop ways to recycle batteries. And we should be seeing the results of that in the next couple of years.
Hey Dale, we've got a question asking,
Okay.
does First Star have any plans to produce house siding at some point in the future?
Off-siting?
House siding
Oh,
from
house
the
siting?
lumber.
No, we don't, because that's a specialty that we're just not capable of, and it'd be a huge expense. Um, the company that we use when we do get that material um, is working with a variety of end markets that are capable of, again, dealing with the problem of the chlorine. Um, so I'm sorry, that's one that we're not going to touch, but we can help, and so can the Nebraska Recycling Council. If you have a tremendous amount of that material, we might be able to direct you to someone who can deal with it. So, um, one of the things that has taken place in the last 2 to 3 years, both our neighbors, Colorado and Minnesota, have passed comprehensive extended producer responsibility laws. And I have been reaching out, as well as others who are in this field, to see if we can't work with the our neighbors to develop additional ways to come up with that sensible approach to how to deal with the waste, because this is an economic issue as much as it is an environmental issue. And um, I think if we work together regionally, we're going to be in a much better position to make that uh, transition from relying solely on landfills to become a much more sustainable state. With that, I'll end there. I'm happy to answer any other questions. Definitely appreciate your time and your patience with things. Be also happy to take questions or emails um, later on. So,
Thank you, Dale. We are gonna launch our survey real quick before we jump into some questions. Um, like I said before we started, this survey just takes less than a minute to complete, and we would greatly appreciate it if you took the time to fill it out. And it just helps us with programming like this one. But thank you for your presentation, Dale. And we already have a question, and it's asking, do you have any information about states that require a deposit on bottles and jars and the impact of people paying instead of recycling?
sure. Uh, yes, the person is referring to deposit legislation. Iowa has a deposit law. There's, I believe, a nickel on every soda and beer, and I believe even um, uh, liquor bottles. Other states have set that fee at even higher levels, 10 cents, and I know that some are talking about taking it even higher. What that does, of course, is, and the primary thing that started that whole concept was to deal with litter. And in Iowa, I believe they've had some tremendous success in cutting down on litter, uh, but they've also do achieve higher diversion rates of the plastics and the aluminum cans that are in the soft drink. Nebraska looked at that approach well over 40 years ago, and the bottling industry was not keen on it. Um, I uh, have come to believe that, yeah, they have their place, but I don't think that has to be the end all either to deal with these waste issues. I hope that answered their question.
Yes. Someone is asking about our open house, which I think is referring to our tour, which is on Friday, August 1st at First Star Fiber Recycling in Omaha. It is on our Facebook. I will insert the link below, and I will also send it out in a follow-up email to all who are in attendance tonight. But yes, Dale will be helping lead that as well if you all are interested in seeing the firsthand of what they do. I don't know if you want to speak more about what that'll cover too.
Yeah, cool. And we'll go into show you the little tricks of the trade, if you will, to separate the material and get it ready to go off to end markets. And we should also be running our lumber machine and show you how that gets converted into the lumber.
A question I have is sorry, we have another question. I'll jump to that first. You may not be involved in this, but there used to be 3 or 4 dumpster containers for cardboard at the First Star recycling site, in addition to the regular green containers for other materials. The cardboard ones were always full to overflowing when I stopped once a week. They have since been removed, and the green ones are the only ones left. Why were the cardboard ones removed, and hasn't this reduced the amount collected?
Sure. It was becoming much more expensive for the hauler, which is FCC, to service them. They pulled those containers, and yeah, I realized too that people are finding that the other remaining containers are getting filled a lot faster. Um, there's not much I can do about that though, because it is the responsibility of FCC to service those drop-off sites. We're not a hauler. Uh, we just accept the material that they bring to us.
Um, Someone is asking probably more of an us question if there's a way to video the tour because they work during the day on Friday. As of right now, we will not be recording the tour on Friday. But hopefully we can schedule another one in the future where it would be a more accessible time for people that are working during the day as well to attend. I have a question for you, Dale, about Hefty and how it's recycled into lumber in Nebraska. Is that all of Hefty nationwide that's doing that? That's being recycled into lumber here, or is that just what's collected in Omaha and Nebraska?
Right now, it's just what's in Omaha and Nebraska. However, we have talked to them about as we expand, they would like to send more to us as well. And I was just on a call today with a gentleman from Chicago, and I said, well, that would be up to Hefty. That's not my decision, but we'd be welcoming it if it can work out. So.
Yeah. And then my other question is, how have you seen impacts of the EPR legislation, whether that's in Colorado or Minnesota or other states in the US, and how that's benefited the market in recycling?
Well, these are all pretty new, so the results are still coming in, if you will. But what I've seen so far in Colorado, which is farther along than Minnesota, they did a needs assessment of what is it going to take to divert more material for the landfill. And the cost for that assessment alone was paid by the brands. And I can tell you, because we get a lot of calls from folks beyond Nebraska, the brands who are looking for end markets. And we have shared with them, that's great. Would love to help you. You've got to, um, make your packaging more recyclable. And the fee that they're paying into Colorado and to Minnesota and Oregon is also has a program like this, as well as Maine and other states are also, Maryland just passed theirs. They are incentivized to make their packaging more recyclable and also to work to put it back into their packaging, which creates a bottle to bottle or a bag to bag type of economic circularity, which is necessary to make sure that this is an ongoing thing.
Yes, for sure. We do not have any more questions, so I think that concludes our webinar tonight. But I will reiterate one more time, if you haven't gotten a chance to fill out the survey that was launched, I will say one more time how we would greatly appreciate it if you took the time to fill it out. If you want to share this with someone who wasn't able to attend tonight, or if you want to watch it again, this webinar will be posted on our YouTube in the near future with all of our past webinars. And I also will be sending out a follow-up for any of those that attended tonight if you'd like to register for our upcoming in-person tour on August 1st. And thank you for attending tonight's webinar and learning more about the economics of recycling. And thank you, Dale, for this presentation and giving us your time and talent. And I hope you all have a great rest of your night. Thank you, Dale.
Thank you, Lauren. Appreciate it.
Thank you.